Hello and welcome back. Today we'll be doing question 6 from the 2011 MAT paper. Let's get started. Question 6. For applicants in computer science, mathematics and computer science and philosophy only. Alice, Bob, Charlie and Diane are playing together when one of them breaks a precious vase. They all know who broke the vase. When questioned, they make the following statements. Alice says, "It was Bob." Bob says, "It was Diane." Charlie says, "It was not me." Diane says, "What Bob says is wrong." Each statement is either true or false. Part 1. Explain why at least one of the four must be lying. Part 2. Explain why at least one of them must be telling the truth. Part 3. Let us suppose that exactly one of the four is lying, so the other three are telling the truth. Who is lying? Who did break the vase? Explain your answer. Part 4. Let us now suppose that exactly one of the four is telling the truth, so the other three are lying. Who is telling the truth? Who did break the vase? Explain your answer. Part 5. Let us now suppose that two of the statements are true and two are false. List the people who might now have broken the vase. Justify your answers. Part 6. Hence show that if we don't know how many of the four statements are true, then any one of the four could have broken the vase. Pause the video to have a think, and once you're ready, restart to see if you were correct. Let's get started with part 1. Here, we only need one such example. However, I've done the example for all four people to start. If we say that Alice is truthful, then her statement contradicts Bob's, and therefore Bob is lying. Similarly, if we take Bob or Diane, then their statements contradict the statements of Alice and Bob. However, if we say that Charlie is truthful, then we have to be careful, since Charlie's statement contradicts no one. However, from here, Alice and Bob's statements still contradict each other, and therefore there is definitely someone lying. We'll now move on to part 2. Here, we'll see that if Alice is guilty, then Charlie is definitely truthful. Similarly, for Bob, Charlie and Diane, if they are guilty, then there is at least one other person who is truthful. Now, we'll move on to part 3. Firstly, we'll start by assuming that Alice is lying. This means that Bob is truthful, and therefore Diane is lying, and therefore we have two liars. This contradicts the condition given by the question, and so can't be true. Now, we'll assume that Bob is lying. This means that Alice is truthful, and Bob broke the vase. Charlie and Diane are both truthful. Therefore, we have that Bob is both lying and broke the vase. Now, we'll look at part 4, where only one person is telling the truth. Firstly, we'll assume that Alice is truthful. This means that Bob is lying, but Charlie is truthful. Since we have two truthful people, this cannot occur. We'll now assume that Bob is truthful. This means that Charlie is truthful, and therefore we cannot have this either. If we assume that Charlie is truthful, then all other people must be lying. This means that Alice and Bob are both lying, and therefore Alice broke the vase. But this means that Diane is truthful, and therefore we have two truthful people. Finally, we can look at the case where Diane is truthful. This means that Alice and Bob must both be lying. We have two cases, one where Alice broke the vase and Charlie broke the vase. If we assume that Alice broke the vase, then we see that Charlie is truthful and this cannot happen. However, if Charlie broke the vase, then Charlie is lying and we have three people lying, meaning that in this case, Charlie is lying and broke the vase. Now we'll look at part 5. Where two are true and two are false. Here, if we assume that Alice is truthful, then we can deduce that Diane and Charlie are both truthful. Therefore, this is 3 truthful and Alice cannot be truthful. If we assume that Bob is truthful, then we have that Charlie is truthful and Alice and Diane are both lying. This is allowed, and therefore we can deduce that Diane broke the vase. If Charlie is truthful, then we have multiple choices. Firstly, if Alice is truthful, then Diane is also truthful, and we have 3 truthful people, which is not allowed. If Bob is truthful, then Alice and Diane are both lying, and therefore Diane broke the vase. If Diane is truthful, then Bob is lying, and so is Alice, and this means that Alice broke the vase. Finally, we can look at the case where Diane is truthful. This means that Bob is lying, and we have 2 cases. If Alice is truthful, then Charlie is also truthful, and that means that we have 3 truthful people, meaning that this cannot be the case. Therefore, Charlie is truthful, and Alice is lying. This means that Alice broke the vase. Now, for part 6, we can simply look back at all of our workings and see that there are cases where all 4 of the people could have broken the vase. Therefore, without knowing how many people are truthful, we cannot determine how many people broke the vase. If you liked our video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for some more fun maths problems. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.